at, you name it. And they'll do it through a variety of devices, PCs, smartphones, tablets, and possibly more. And so the question is, what drives what? Essentially, it's the old question about offline, about, I see conversions, but I know part of it is wasted, I just don't know which. So we're going to try to figure out which part is wasted. So before multi-channel, how did it work? This is a bit simplistic, but in practice, not too far from the truth. And I've run a company buying a lot of marketing, so I sort of know what I'm talking about. Before, you had branding. Branding, you just invested in impressions and you said, hey, it's branding. I'm not going to measure ROI. The ROI is not very good, but it's branding, so let's hope for the best. And then you had so-called performance channels, and then you basically measured it in silos. You just typically looked at last click and you say, you looked at last click, you look at silos, and you attributed it. But the reality is it's an integrated experience. So that way of looking at the world does not make a lot of sense. So why multi-channel attribution? Well, I used, it's a bit of an old Google study, and I'm sure the numbers are even higher today. But basically what it says is that the vast majority of conversions involve a path with multiple interactions. They can be clicks, they can be impressions, but they can be multiple devices, but the vast majority over a cookie window, 30-day, will involve multiple interactions with either free interaction or advertising interactions. It's going to be search, it's going to be display, it's going to be social, it's going to be a bunch of things. So the question when you have like one conversion is, what drove what? That's the literally million-dollar question. Can be multiple million, actually. And so what you're going to try to achieve from attribution is three things. First, if you're looking at it as a silo, you're going to find total you have, say, 100 impressions, but then as you allocate them to different silos, it ends up being 120. So you're paying twice for the same impression, which is costly and unfortunate. Second, I don't know how this works, I'm not going to point to it. It helps you calculate the ROI, the return on investment of each channel. You want to know if your investment is optimal. And third, by looking at the majority paths and so on, it helps you understand how your various media interacts, people who use what channel, what do they buy, what kind of demographics, all that sort of stuff. So let's move on to how attribution works. So now the basics is, most advertisers, because it's easy, will use last click. You just look at the last click, you attribute the conversion, end of story. It's very simple. It's wrong, but it's simple. Everyone does it, I've done it, everyone's done it, nothing wrong with it, except it's inaccurate. So basically, because people realize this made no sense, one example where it makes no sense, this is just an example. You've got someone looking for a flight to Madrid. I should have said to Milan, it works the same. They do some search, they find you using Google, they spend a lot of time finding the right flight, but then maybe they want to discuss it with their families. For whatever reason, they don't convert. Then, you retarget them with some display, and then at the end, they come back and very quickly, they buy a ticket. What's driven the conversion? Presumably, I would say it's a first visit. You can discuss it, but presumably it's the same. It's the first visit. People spend a lot of time finding the airplane ticket. So it just proves that saying, it'll be attributed to the last click makes no sense. But you'll have other example where it'll be the one in the middle or at the end. So the whole logic of last click really makes no sense. It's not because it's the last click that it's driven anything, and in particular when the brand is very strong, it really biases the results. So based on this, people have developed, I live in fear of Sante, so I'm watching my watch. So people have developed a whole bunch of different models as to how to attribute value. So if it's not last click, you can make first click. Or you've got what I call the democratic model. Every interaction has the same weight. It makes no sense, but at least it's democratic. You can have it U-shaped, you can have it time decay, you can have as many models as you want. And so typically people use a combination of those models, and then there's typically a bunch of, they give it weight by click rank, by timing, type of click. They will say depending on whether it goes to the front page or to a deep page, depending the type of landing page, depending on lots of parameters, you can make very, 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 very complicated models. Again, nothing wrong with this, but ultimately, what you find is the model delivers what you've put into the model. So if you decide it's first click, you're going to find that whatever comes first has a big weight. And if you say, it's every click, then you're going to find, say, that some impressions have the same weight as a big click from a search engine, which is probably intuitively not true. So here's my rabbit. It's basically, you're pulling a rabbit out of a hat and you say, hey, this is the model I'm going to use. Again, a lot of people have done this, but your models are probably not accurate. And so here it comes to how you can make things better through algorithms. And the whole idea is you don't make any assumptions. You don't decide this particular click, this particular kind of impressions has more weight than another. You basically put all of your data in the machine and you let the machine figure out, what matters. Now, a very, very simplistic version is this. It says you're basically going to compare paths, and you say, if the one on top or if the one at the bottom the one on top converts better than the one at the bottom, you say it's because display converts better than direct. Now, this is a very simplistic model because you don't do it on the basis of two paths, of two conversions. You do it on the basis of thousands and millions of conversions. But basically, you let the machine decide what's a model that's best suited, that best approximates all the data to give you what really has had an impact. And so, say display doesn't work, you're going to have a lot of display, a lot of interactions, but you're going to see that marginally it makes no difference. And so the weight of display is going to be, I don't want to beat on display, this is just an example, but then you're going to say display doesn't work. Or, conversely, if every time you've got display revenue conversion is high, then display has a major role in conversion. And that's basically how you let the machine build your model without an assumption that X or Y or Z, that the specific channel is the driver of your conversions. And so I think algorithmic attribution is really the new generation of how you can look at your marketing and how you can understand what drives conversions and better allocate your spend. So now a quick case study.